right, what's up, buddy?
Oh shit, am I interrupting like PUBG or something?
Yep, now the whole stream is watching me play League because of you. Go ahead. What's up?
I disagree about a few things you said in the Death Note
Yeah,
discussions.
well, what do you disagree about, buddy?
I think the most
Egregious.
irritating one,
Uh-huh.
the most irritating one to me is because it seems like everyone is making this claim is a change in character of Ryuk from the original to the movie.
Oh, can I clarify a point? Because I don't go full retard here, okay? Let me clarify
Yeah, sure.
a point. When you're doing a remake or a re-whatever bullshit, I don't care if you're faithful to the original or not. It doesn't bother me at all. If you want to make your own thing, that's totally cool. It doesn't have to be similar to the other thing or not. I don't really care. Like, I'll never like look at a remake or a reboot or whatever and be like, well, this isn't that close to the original. I hate it. That's never been my criticism of the movie. My main criticism of the movie is it fails all on its own. But I think I was responding specifically to that guy about Ryuk being the same as he was in the movie. But okay. So.
Oh, then we might agree then. I tend to think it sort of fails as a movie, but I like the philosophy it follows as an adaptation.
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
have you seen
I actually thought it was really good that they like Americanized it, or I'm sorry, not good,
whitewashed?
but I think that no, it's not a whitewash. I don't agree with people. I know you're using that ironically. I think that people that use that term.
They probably should have cast an Asian light. That wouldn't have been too bad.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I like it. Like actually, they could have even gone a step further and given him a name besides Light, maybe a more. I saw like Lucian suggested or something like, or Lucian or something like something more like westernized or whatever. But like the fact that they called him like Light Turner and they tried to make it like an American thing instead of doing that, instead of doing the weird thing where some people are Japanese and some people are white and they all speak English. And you get those weird, like, sub moments where somebody's like, watch out, Sano Sook, like some weird kind of westernized, Americanized, bastardized shit. Like, I like the idea of, like, we're just going to make it an American fucking thing. Like, I think that's a cool idea. So I'm not critical of it in those regards. But, like, what the movie was pretty fucking bad.
I think most of its failings were actually in terms of directing, probably. Not in terms of a lot of the script writing or just writing in general or failures in adaptation that a lot of people like to point out. For instance, in terms of characters, I thought the only major character that failed tremendously was Light himself. And I think that was largely due to the actor, not necessarily the writing of his character.
I guess, like, the problem is that, like, I'm not too sure, like, what is this movie supposed to be about?
It's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a shittier version of the original Death
So,
Note.
like, the original movie is about a very, very intelligent young man that finds a book and then assumes himself to be the moral authority of the fucking world, right? And he is at ends with other very intelligent investigators. It's a battle of wits, and it's like an intellectual thriller-esque kind of investigative thing, right? It's like what that is about, right? That's what the Death Note anime is about, right? For this movie, what is the movie about? Like, I have a really hard time summarizing that. I think this is the principal failing of the movie. Like, was it supposed to be like a coming of age, like the kid matures? Was it supposed to be about like two people trying to outwit each other? Because there's not really much of that. Was it supposed like what was the movie about? Like, what was the main point? What was I supposed to walk away from the movie feeling?
I think an important piece of context when judging this movie is to understand that Death Note has actually been adapted a bunch of times. I don't know. I personally like to view it through the lens, as someone who's a Death Note fan, I like to view it through the lens of the other adaptations.
Well,
I mean,
but I thought we were viewing it through the lens of it just being its own film.
Well, I said in the very beginning, I think it fails as a film. I think the things that deserve to be defended about the film are in the context of being an adaptation. I think it fails as a film, especially with the directing.
Oh, well, then I don't think well, then what did I say that you really disagreed with?
Well, a few things about characters.
Sure.
I thought Ryuk was almost entirely
oh my God,
true to.
Sorry.
I thought Ryuk was was entirely in character to the original.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the claim you made was something along the lines of he intervenes a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
Or, I often see that brought up a lot, and he has like essentially no intervention in the film, whereas in the original he intervenes a couple of times. He tells Light he's being followed. He finds the spy cameras in the room. In the second arc, he covers the mouth and he covers the face of the other Shinigami so they could raid Noah's base. He has a lot of very plot
So
dependent
the
things.
big differences are when he intervenes in the anime, that his intervention there is a function of light manipulating him. I guess he doesn't directly intervene much, but he just seems to be a very malevolent figure. In the anime, the Shinigamis are almost cute. It would be
Comic
like
relief.
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, they're just kind of like dudes, and they're deaf
Cheeky.
guys.
They're cheeky.
Yeah, cheeky. They just kind of wander around. Everybody makes fun of Ryuk when he drops his death note into the human world, but he goes down not because he's evil and he wants to change the world, because he's just bored and he thinks that humans are really interesting and he wants to see what light will do. Like that's kind of like his kind of thing. He's kind of an indifferent dude. He's not like super invested in anybody winning or losing. He laughs when light gets outsmarted. He laughs when light outsmarts others, and that's kind of what he's there. He's kind of like along for that. He's almost like the viewer in a sense, right? The Shinigami. I'm not the Shinigamis, but Ryuk specifically is almost like the viewer.
When
kind
he's
of.
a spectator, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, like in the movie, he is very much an evil, malevolent figure, right?
I don't know. I didn't necessarily get. I mean, that's difficult because the whole movie is centered around killing people. So him wanting light to pursue that, I guess you could declare as evil. But I feel like that's a function of Light's character being different rather than Ryuk's, because Light is more reluctant to kill people. It's more like Misa is the driving force in the film.
No, I feel like you're pushing a lot of narrative into this that's not given. Like if we go by what's presented on screen without bringing any kind of outside influence, we are given a character that the main character reacts to him in fear, screams. The character is presented oftentimes in shadows with a dark figure. He's got a menacing voice. He's got a menacing laugh. He's instigating the antagonist to kill and murder. He's rooting for people. He says, "I like this girl" or whatever at one point because she wants to murder people. Like he is very much presented as a menacing, evil figure. This is not somebody that is presented as morally ambiguous. Like he's very much presented as a bad guy, evil figure. Right? I think that's an inarguable point.
Inarguable point. Yeah. I felt like in terms of lighting, keeping him in the shadows. It was a very dark movie to begin with. That was one of my critiques of it in terms of the movie had shit lighting. It had a lot of problems outside of script writing. I thought the script was one of the more solid aspects of the film, but in terms of Ryuk being evil or whatever, in this you have a very big difference in the structure of the film and Light's character, that he's reluctant to kill people, or he's essentially planning on ceasing it, which is something we don't really see in the show.
Sure, which is fine. And again, I try not to make comparisons to the anime. Like,
well, what I'm trying to say here is that the I don't think Ryuk would have acted differently if Light decided to just stop killing people eventually. Didn't Ryuk literally?
Wait,
didn't Ryuk when they meet each other?
In the Netflix film.
Sorry?
In the Netflix movie, you think that Ryuk wouldn't have cared if Light stopped killing people?
No, what I'm saying is in the show, I don't know if he would have acted differently. Doesn't Ryuk, when they meet each other in the anime, literally make the claim, like, oh, if I get bored, I might kill you, by the way?
I feel like he doesn't say that. I think he makes...
he says if he gets caught, he'll kill him. But he says a couple of things.
He may be in the manga, but I don't think he says it in the anime, does he?
And the dub of the anime, yeah, and the manga.
He says, I'll kill you if you get caught, does he?
Yeah. He says, if you get caught or if I get bored, I'll kill you, I think. He definitely says if he gets caught. Yeah, because he doesn't want to sit...
I know that in the beginning he makes kind of a very ambiguous staged claim to something like I'll be the one to kill you eventually or something like that. But I don't think he says like if you get caught or if I get bored I'll kill you.
He literally says something like if you get caught I will kill you because it is not interesting to me to just sit in a prison and wait for you to die of age.
Well, I know he says that at the very end of the anime.
Oh,
can I find this? Can somebody quote? I'm curious. I just want to hear this again, just so I have it in my mind.
I can't tell you which adaptation because I'm familiar with all of them, sub, dub, manga, so I don't know. I'm pretty sure he says it in the dub.
I know that he says it at the very end because he doesn't want to wait for Light to die in jail. And then I think there's like a mistake there where he says like, I don't know how long it'll take you to die, even though he should know because he's got the Shinigami eyes, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean,
but even so, like I don't think that one statement you're making, that's very important. I don't think he ever says I'm going to kill you if you stop killing people or I get bored. I don't think he ever says that in the beginning. I feel like I would have remembered that. Like that's a pretty big claim. Like that's a big statement that would change the character quite a bit, I think.
I don't know if he said he'd kill him if he was. He definitely says he would kill him under certain conditions. I don't remember. He definitely said jail. But the idea is that he would not be happy if he wasn't killing, and I think that's fairly.
I think that's a really important point. I don't think he ever says that. I could be wrong, but I really don't remember him ever saying this. Fuck. I need, if anybody in the chat remembers this, if you can link like the scene or whatever, maybe.
In terms of comparing the character, that's a bit of a. I might be wrong in saying that, but that's a bit of an irrelevant point.
No, it's really relevant.
In the film, he doesn't say "I will kill you if you stop killing," so it's a.
Well, in the film, he's very, very heavily implies that he wants Light to be killing people. That's why he likes people that kill people. Well,
that's why he drops the Death Note in the first place. In all of the adaptations of it.
Wait, no. In the anime, and probably in the manga, in the anime, he drops the Death Note because he's bored. That's what right? We agree on that? Do we agree on that?
Yes.
Yeah, because he's bored. He just wants to see, because he likes following humans around. He's bored. And in the film adaptation on Netflix, it seems like he drops it because he's malicious. He wants humans to kill each other. That's his goal. He wants them, that's why they showed, in the previous writings that so many people had killed with it in the past, and he's really big on that.
I feel like the idea in the film is the more important factor there is his boredom rather than him wanting to see people die. And the Death Note is just the best tool to do that. I mean, the reason why he drops the Death Note in the human world because he's bored is because he wants to see how the human will use it to kill people.
Well, yeah, in the anime he does, but in the film, I'm pretty sure he, legit, he really wants, him to kill people and go crazy and do crazy shit.
This gets outside of what's actually presented in the film, but you could speculate, because of a lot of rules being different and such, that the notebook is...
here, okay, so up to now, I think we have an insanely huge distinction to draw between these two characters. In Death Note, in the anime, Light finds the book, and as a character himself, we take a character and we watch him go through the necessary internal rationalization mechanisms to start to kill other people. It's an important part of his character, right? Light considers himself to be superior to others because he's so intelligent and successful in school. He wants to start taking justice into, right? It's a very big leap for him to start killing people. It's important. But in the anime, we literally have Ryuk functioning as a device to push Light to kill somebody. I think that's a really huge distinction between the two.
I agree that this situation is a drastic change from the original, but I sort of said this earlier. I feel like this speaks more towards a change of Light's character rather than Ryuk's. Because Ryuk kind of has to walk him through how to use the notebook rather than Light doing it on his own. I don't necessarily think that's something Ryuk would not do if Light was just kind of holding on to it for a few days in the anime.
Good. There's no need to stop it.
Oh, let's
don't stop at one.
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
You seem to be invoking his voice a lot. Did you watch it dubbed or subbed?
Dubbed? Or I'm sorry, subbed. My bad.
In the sub, he sounds like a Japanese middle school principal. In the dub, he sounds like a fucking demon. Okay. So that might play with expectations a little bit. Willem Dafoe, he sounds very similar to the dub voice. So in terms of tone, that might be a very big.
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm just trying to go by in terms of what I see on the screen. Even with a menacing voice in the anime, I don't think you could make the argument. If you wanted to make an argument that you defended with excerpts from the anime that Ryuk is a morally dubious character, I don't think you could make that argument. I just don't think there's enough in there to do it. Whereas in the film, even in just a 1.5 hour movie, I think I've got plenty of excerpts to draw from. Check out this clip where Ryuk says he prefers somebody that kills a lot of people. Check out this clip where every time the director shows us the Shinigami, he's always in dark light with his eyes glowing, and he's always making these menacing noises. He's always pushing Ryuk to kill more, right? I feel like you have plenty of... That's a very strongly defensible argument that Ryuk in the film is this is an evil god of death, right? As opposed to just the Ryuk in the anime who's kind of just along for the ride.
I think invoking lighting direction and stuff like that is sort of a strong point in terms of making that argument. But in terms of his actions, I think it's a hard argument to make, especially considering him being used, like, he's on screen for what, like a few minutes in the film. I don't know. I feel like in terms of his actions, comparing him to the show, that's a very difficult claim
well,
to make.
even on the
character.
actions, he's telling him, like, don't just kill one. Let's clean it all up.
Well, that's not actions. That's
more.
Well, that's not actions. It's like opinions, right? And
no, when it's the action, he's telling the main character to kill more than he even normally would. Like, honestly, like, this is almost the difference between entrapment and not. Like, in the first film, if you found that death note and Light tried to go and take Ryuk to court for entrapment, he would lose that case because Ryuk just gave him the means to commit a crime and he did it on his own. Whereas in the film here, this is almost entrapment level. He gives him a tool that he wouldn't otherwise have. He tells him and teaches him how to use it. Then he encourages him to use it on multiple people. Like, we're reaching like levels of entrapment here in the film, which is, it sounds memey that I'm bringing it up, but it's really, really important because now we're shifting some of the responsibility for killing people from the character onto the Shinigami, right? In the manga and in the anime, it is undeniable that Light is using the Death Note as a tool because of his own perceived superiority to murder other people for what he perceives to be justice. Like, in the film, he's kind of like a dim-witted kid that's almost being pushed by this god of death that's clearly more intelligent and more menacing to him than anything else to push him to kill. I think that's a really important distinction to make as well.
I don't even know which point of that to follow up on. That was kind of a lot.
Well, like, the main point is that the Ryuk here is pushing him very hard, whereas I don't think in the anime the Ryuk really pushed him at all.
Oh yeah, he's walking him through it. Yeah, certainly. But like I said, I think that speaks more towards Light kind of being like a pussy in this rather than Ryuk. But I mean, we can agree to disagree on that. It's not a really big. I do agree that it's different. I just don't think Ryuk's character is as massively different as you or a lot of people have claimed. Like in the anime, the example with the Shinigami in the Mellow arc or whatever. He's like literally gagging this guy. Like he's like physically like gagging people, like covering.
Wait, who the Ryuk is?
Ryuk, he gags the other Shinigami that Mello had on watch so they could basically just waltz into Mello's hideout.
What was the the second part I don't remember as well. Why was he doing that? What was the? It was with that other Death Note that was like trying to, or the other Shinigami that was trying to get his Death Note.
I'm pretty sure they had some. Every time he intervenes, it is in some way in his self-interest. Basically, the other Shinigami, Sido, who's the one who owns the notebook, he was the original owner of the notebook that
he dropped into the human world,
yeah.
right?
And he's only Mello in the Mafia can see Sido, so he basically has Sido outside on watch, right?
Uh-huh.
So that they can kill people remotely who try to lurk outside of Mello's base. So Light basically sends Ryuk to like gag him, just like grab him and like cover his mouth. So that he couldn't relay the information to Mello that the police are coming. There's probably some like line that's like, oh well, Sido was following me, so this way I can get rid of him easier. Okay, Light, I'll do this for you. But he's still intervening in the story in like massive ways that benefit Light like multiple times.
I would have to go and I don't know if that's true. I can't. I mean I can't just concede that point because it's really important. But I don't know if it's true. I would have to go back and watch more. I'm sorry. Somebody in chat is saying you can tell me if you think this is true or not. Ryuk didn't want another Shinigami intervening because he wanted to see the humans doing their own things.
He says that Sido is annoying because he's following him and saying, "Give me back my notebook." But that's the only thing Ryuk says. I think that was like earlier.
Because like I just don't ever have this opinion. I don't get this from any other part that I remember in the anime that Ryuk is like actively trying to really help Light, unless Light has kind of forced him to do so or tricked him into doing so.
I guess if you said it like that, yeah, every time he helps Light, he has something to gain. But
yeah,
in terms of writing, I don't find that much different. Like, oh, he gave him an apple, so it's okay that he helped him this time. I don't necessarily.
Well, but that's a really important distinction, right? The difference between, like these are like I'm describing a morally ambiguous character in one sense, and I'm describing a malicious character in another sense, right? If I say that, like, okay, Light is a mass murderer and he has a notebook, he has a god of death, and this god of death, in order to facilitate Light's murdering people, will search for cameras in his room to make sure that investigators can't catch him, right? Okay, well, it sounds to me like these guys are working together, right? On the other hand, versus, like, Light is somebody that murders people using a notebook. There's a god of death that follows him around because he's from the death world. All of their fruit there is fucking garbage, and he absolutely loves fruit in the human world. Light will, like, trick him into, like, searching for cameras and shit in exchange for fruit, right? This is a much different story than the former, right?
Yeah, while they didn't necessarily show Ryuk's neutrality in the same way in the film, I don't know. I felt like in terms of, like, he wasn't necessarily on Light's side in the film either.
Well, no, he was on the side of whoever kills more people. Like, it was even more extreme than that. Like, the girl was even pushing for more killing than Light was. That's why she's the one that killed all the police officers and shit.
Yes, but I think that's sort of a logical, like, conclusion of, like, the way his character would operate due to the reason he's giving the death note to people is due to his boredom. He doesn't necessarily want, like, an idle death note.
I don't know, my dude. He seems pretty evil in the film.
Well, Ryuk's not... I think we can both agree Ryuk was nowhere near one of the larger flaws of the film.
Well, I don't necessarily agree.
As a film or as an adaptation, it's important to distinguish.
Well, I think it was an important part. Well, okay, Ryuk being neutral was a very important part of the anime, because if Ryuk had his own agenda or his own plot or was pushing things in the anime, it would work because we have very strong characters. We want to see what Light does. We want to see what L does. We want to see what Nier and Mello do. We don't, like, Ryuk doesn't need to do anything to make this interesting. Maybe in the film he needs to be more active because the characters are kind of meh.
This may be a bit unimportant to point out, but in the manga, Ryuk is actually a bit more sinister than he is in the show. One of the biggest changes in the manga from the manga to the show is Light's death at the end. You've seen the show all the way through, right? You didn't, like, stop after L died, or okay, yeah. In the manga, Ryuk is they're all in the warehouse when Light dies. Mm-hmm. And Ryuk essentially writes Light's name and just kind of, like, waves the page in front of Light's face. He's like, "You're going to die in 40 seconds." Light starts, like, laughing at his face. He's a lot more sinister in the original portrayal. So it depends. In terms of talking about his character as an adaptation, are we saying adapted from the show, adapted from the Japanese live-action movies, adapted from the manga?
Well, sure, but these are different discussions, too, because I said before, I don't care that it's an adaptation, I just think it fails on its own. But, like, as an adaptation, it would be a failure.
What's wrong with it on its own, then? We were mostly discussing it compared to the show.
Well, on its own, my main point in the beginning was that you can't really summarize the story. Like, what kind of a story are they trying to tell on its own? Like, it seems like I can't, like... what is the story of the film on its own? What is it? What is it trying to tell? That's why in the beginning I summarized what I thought the anime was about. But then in terms of what this is about, I don't know what the film. I don't know what kind of story they were trying to tell.
I think a lot of the. What kind of story are they trying to tell?
Yeah, like what is the story?
I mean, it would, in terms of synopsis, it would have the same synopsis as the original show.
No, absolutely not.
It doesn't succeed at anywhere.
No. It's totally different. It's a totally different.
Well, I shouldn't say that because in this, Light is not a genius. He's a below average intelligence.
Yeah, and an edgy kid.
Except at the end.
Yeah, I didn't like that, but that was just a plot component.
Oh God!
Where he becomes a genius for 2 seconds or whatever.
One of my biggest problems with the film. I actually don't necessarily mind a lot of changes with Light's character, but, like, I don't necessarily mind that Light is more morally ambiguous in this than he is in the show, and that Misa's kind of the completely horrible person.
Wait, he's more morally ambiguous in what versus what?
He's more, for better or for worse, he's more morally ambiguous in the movie.
No, I totally disagree. I think that what Light was doing was presented, at least in the first 2/3 of the show, Light was presented as a pretty morally ambiguous character. As opposed to the film, it's shown that killing people with the death note is pretty much bad and wrong and evil.
I know. In the show, at the absolute latest, by, like, the 20 episode mark, all moral ambiguity with that character is, like, completely gone.
Well, yeah, once they start closing in and shit, maybe, sure, yeah.
Well, no, I don't even think it's necessary. I think this character is worse than the show one. I'm not even saying moral ambiguity is a good thing in this sense. It produced a worse character In the
Well,
sense
no,
of
I
the
think that
movie.
moral ambiguity produces. I like the moral ambiguity because it leaves interpretation open to the
What?
person. Like, it's an interesting question. It's a consequentialist versus deontological question, right? Like, is it okay to kill a bunch of bad people if it makes the world a better place? That's a question that the anime never really answers. Even at the very end, I guess Nier sort of answers it when he says that you think that you're blah blah blah, but that's not it. You're wrong. You're a killer. That's all you are at the end, right?
Holy shit.
Well, I don't hate him anywhere near as much as other people do, but like the show wrestles with that ambiguity for quite a while, where Light thinks that he's on like some self-righteous mission, and even, there's even like news reports that crime and rape and all sorts of things are down all over the world and shit. So it is pretty ambiguous, right?
Oh, I would say that they built the character is more complex, and the show is even more ethically complex.
Well, yeah,
being said,
I'm
I
saying
think
that the show, there's a lot of ambiguity in that you could argue right and wrong on both sides, and you can argue that the show doesn't really tell you how you should feel. The show doesn't, until you get to like the end, maybe when like Light's dad is dying and shit, or at the end when he's trying to kill Kaz. Like, you can argue there that, like, okay, the show is trying to tell you now that maybe these killings are bad, whereas in the film, from the very fucking start, like, the deaths are very fucking gory. You've got an evil demon, like, pushing him to do it. You've got the evil as fuck girlfriend who's very evil, telling him to do it, kill your dad. Like, it's obviously throughout the entire show, the Death Note is shown as an evil thing with no room for ambiguity at all. Sorry, go ahead.
In the show, in the episodes getting closer to L's death and the second arc of the show, I know. I feel like the show just is like, okay, like just telling you like, okay, Light's bad. Like there's like an exposition scene. I forget the context of the scene, but in the second arc, there's an exposition scene where Mikami goes on television, and he's like, Kira is gonna start killing the elderly and the crippled, and then Light just has some internal monologue like, Mikami, it's too early to be telling our plans like that.
Wait, what? Hold on, I would have to watch this.
This literally happens. Fucking 2070 paradigm shift shit.
Where Mikami says that Light is going to start killing the elderly.
He says that on TV, and then Light says in his mind, in his internal monologue, "Damn it, Mikami, it's too early to be divulging our plans like that," or something.
I don't remember this at all. I would have to go back and.
I don't know. Like, even though, like, I guess if you want to be like. Really edgy, you could argue the ethics of that in terms of on like a greater scheme, but like in terms of like appealing to the emotion of the viewer, I think that's the show very clearly saying.
All right.
A caveat I might add is maybe it's a manga exclusive conversation, but they most certainly did say this.
Well, the thing is, like, killing cripples and the elderly seems to go very much in contradiction to like what Light does.
Well, the idea was. I don't necessarily think it's a bad. Like I said, I don't think moral ambiguity is necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're talking about originally. You could argue originally in the show he's morally ambiguous, and then he progressively becomes corrupted, and you could say that's kind of his character arc. I mean, early on he starts killing like just the death row criminals, right? Then he starts killing, just violent criminals in general. Then he starts killing non-criminals who are opposing him, like the Naomi girl, like the stand-in for L. And then you wind up at the end of that path, at the end of that slippery slope, to the second arc where Mikami is saying on television about how they're going to start killing elderly and crippled. And in Light's internal monologue, he sounds like he was in agreement with it, but he didn't like that Mikami was saying it on TV so sudden because like, people weren't ready for it.
Maybe I would. Yeah, I guess I would just have to. I'll maybe find it again, but okay. All right. Well, any other major points, buddy?
You said in the original show, L was emotionless, and you didn't like his portrayal in the film.
Yeah. Maybe emotionless is the bad word, but he had a very cold exterior almost always. In the film, he was like fucking crying on their first meeting.
I mean, in the show and in the movie, you could both say, okay, like L cares about Watchery, at least. But in the film, he, like you said, exterior, he keeps less cool outwardly. The best example,
so, yeah.
The best example I can think of him losing his cool in the show is when Misa kills the first task force member. Remember before Misa is introduced? I think it's that guy. or very early on in the show, like 10th episode or whatever, when one of the task force members is killed, who Elle barely knows. Like Elle's like literally shaking in his chair, and they kind of close up on him, which is sort of similar to the scene in the film. They try to replicate the scene in the film when all the FBI agents were killed, when he's like shaking and he's like slams the phone. I do think it got to ridiculous parts when he's like literally chasing Light through alleyways with like a space gun.
Yeah, I don't know what the point of that gun was. That was really weird. But like, I don't remember in the okay, so FBI detectives killed. I'm gonna get on a list for this. Death Note. I don't remember like Elle being like very emotionally.
You know the task force, the like Light's dad, the dude with the afro, Matsuda from the original show, right? The people that Elle trusts to like see his face.
Yeah.
Very early on, when Misa's introduced, she kills one of those people, and in the show, Light's Elle's like vibrating in his seat. He's like shaking and shit, and it shows like a close up of his hand. And they replicated that scene almost pretty faithfully in the movie, but except they do it with the FBI agents when he's like freaking out and shaking when he's on the phone and like slams the phone down. I do think earlier on in the film they captured, or at least like the first like 2/3 of the film, they captured Elle quite faithfully. But I do agree that
not even 2/3, because he met Light pretty early on, and that whole cat and mouse thing was done pretty much instantly.
What do you mean in the film?
Yeah, in the film, like it seems like he went.
He met. I would say he met him like 20 minutes in.
Well, no, not that early. I don't think.
I watched it twice. I think it's like about 22 minutes.
Is when Elle met Light?
Maybe 25.
No way. It's got to be like 40 minutes or something.
Oh no! When Elle's introduced, it's like 25 minutes.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about when Elle meets Light. Like as soon as he meets
Light, it's like the 40% mark, if not a little further.
When he meets Light, it's like that he's like loses it instantly. And Light and Elle being friends with each other was one of the most interesting parts of the anime.
Well, that's obviously impossible due to the runtime of this being a movie rather than like a miniseries or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. That the scene when he's in him with the diner, that's probably like the best scene in the film. He doesn't lose his. I mean, yeah, he loses his cool when he thinks he's killing his. I mean, Walter is essentially his adopted father, so he loses his cool when Light essentially kidnaps his dad, and then he goes into Light's house and starts panicking and is offering a trade to him. But in the scene with the diner was fairly good. I'd even say, as much as I despise...
this is one of the scenes where not only did I feel like it was bad, I actually feel like the acting was really iffy here on the part of Light's character.
Light's acting was awful in that, but that's true of the whole film. I was saying in that scene, that's a pretty good example of...
Kira. I don't know, man. I'm not sure.
Are you talking about Light? Yeah, Light's shit.
Oh, yeah, no, I just, I don't know, the whole movie, man. I'm not sure.
Okay, what are some things you liked about the movie? What's some things you liked, Steven? There's a few
I was
things
gonna
I can
try
say
to
about-
reach for
go ahead.
bullshit, but I can't really say I like the music. Like the 80s, like
the
synthwave. I
music
felt like I was
was
watching a doc. I kept having to check if I had Dr. Disrespect on in the background whenever they were playing music because of that like synthwave shit that was going on.
Yeah, the music was it was like the guy's fucking mixtape or some shit. It was fucking.
I liked William Dafoe's performance, I guess.
You didn't like Keith Stanfield. You didn't like his performance.
Oh,
as
was he
L?
the dad? Oh, L.
Keith Stanfield is L.
I don't know. I liked the dad's performance. I thought he was an okay actor.
I didn't like him. Actually,
L, I
maybe
guess?
this is.
I don't know.
Maybe this is because Misa's character is more ambitious in the film than she is in the show, but I thought she was okay. Especially compared to Light.
Yeah, she was probably okay, just in the
casting
context of the show.
The casting of Light by far was the single worst part of the movie, in my opinion. I think a lot of the writing was like even like some of Light's dialogue in the like in terms of writing or like the substance of what he's saying in that diner scene we just watched.
Mm-hmm.
Had some kind of value. I thought like the role he was kind of playing in that as kind of like the net that's like catching the Death Note and preventing it from getting in the hands of Misa or someone worse. I thought it was kind of an interesting role he played.
Yeah, but again, interesting. Like There's a lot in the film that's interesting, but that's the
There-
big
there
problem
are-
with the film is it's overly ambitious and it fails on so many fronts, like to try and do.
Now, this is a question of adaptation. Have you seen? You've only seen the show, right?
Yeah, no, this Netflix film, I guess, yeah.
Okay, well, in like a year after the anime came out, there was 2 live-action Japanese films made, which are essentially an adaptation of the show up until when L dies, right?
Okay.
And it's live-action Japanese. It's pretty faithful. It's shortened down, obviously. The big change is at the end. L catches light instead of near and mellow because they're not in the story. It's just adapting the first half of the show.
Okay.
That being more faithful, almost being completely faithful in terms of 2 films, faithful as 2 films can be with that runtime, being completely faithful to the show and not experimenting with anything, while it's in many ways less stupid or has less major flaws than the Netflix one. I feel like the Netflix one justifies itself existing far more than the Japanese live-action ones. Because the Japanese live-action ones, as an adaptation, in every single way, are just inferior versions of the original. Whereas this is so drastically different in certain areas that I feel like just by that it justifies its existence as an adaptation.
Okay. I mean, I kind of sort of agree, but it still doesn't help me from thinking that this adaptation wasn't garbage on its own merits, but...
Well, are you saying the film garbage, or is it garbage at being an adaptation?
It's just bad on its own. Like I said, I don't think you can really well summarize the film or anything, and give it what was it about? What were we supposed to feel? Who was the...
Oh, in terms of I think in terms of the most overambitious thing in terms of it failing as a film was trying to appeal to people who have never seen the show and people who have seen the show at the same time, and essentially failing to grasp both audiences. I'd say it fails to fans of the show more just because of the expectation thing. But I don't know. In terms of an adaptation, especially considering that there have been live-action Death Note movies before, I think this is what an adaptation should be. This is what people should do with adaptation. Now,
sure, I still don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean the director was shit and the actor for Light was shit, but that's not a fault of the art of adapting it.
Sure.
You haven't seen the new Ghost in the Shell, have you?
No, I haven't, but I haven't seen the original either, so I don't really have...
You never seen the original movie?
No. I tried to watch some of the anime before, but I just couldn't get into it.
That's another great adaptation.
Is it really?
Okay, no. It's like the Japanese Death Note, where it's the shit version of the original. Okay, I guess I've said my piece. You can go play PUBG with Mr. Mutin.
Alright, well, hey, buddy, I love you. I appreciate your conversation. Have fun.
Alright, see ya.